All right. I think we are ready to get started. So good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate it. Just a really brief introduction. This is Victor Cardwell from Woods & Rogers. If you had a chance to visit their website, I think I sent a link in the meeting. I thought I would be fancy and say a lot of nice things about Victor, but there's way too many accolades for him for me to mention. It would take longer than the training. So this training class, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I have actually been through this class before. I think it's awesome. It's probably even better now because the last time I went through it was in 2018, I believe, in Roanoke. Yeah. And this training, I hope you get a lot out of it today. Victor is an awesome trainer, so I know that you will. But everything that we're going to talk about today is so relevant in the world that we're living in today, in the times that we're living in today. If you turn on the news or watch, listen to podcasts or any type of media that you listen to, you know that diversity and inclusion and equity are all things that we're talking about at various levels throughout our society. So I'm honored to have Victor here to facilitate this training today. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you.
I don't turn all that, but thank you. Thank you guys for coming. This is the last time you'll see me stand right here. If you're old enough, you remember Phil Donahue. Anybody here remember Phil Donahue? Seriously. Some of you are lying your asses off. You were too young. Sorry. Oops. All right, a couple things. I'm Victor Cardwell. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm a labor and employment attorney at Woods Rogers. I've been at that firm. The best way to tell you is come November. It's hard to believe this, but I've been there for 30 years come November. I thought the same thing, girl. I'm 31. I started as a baby, right? I am a labor and employment attorney management side. That means I represent people like Pittsylvania County, right? Businesses or whatever. And I'm lucky. I'm very, very fortunate. I work out of our Roanoke office, but I'm able to deal with these kind of issues, frankly, all over. And so it is right to say that this is sort of the world we're living in. Let me say a couple things as a precursor, though. First, I am the fourth of 5 children, okay? And I'm telling you that for a reason. It's real important that you know that. And I'm going to tell you about that momentarily. But I'm the fourth of 5 children. So that impacts how I communicate. I want to make sure you sort of know that. This should be an interactive session. If you have questions, if you agree, say it. If you disagree, say it. You'd be wrong, but you should say it anyway, right? You should say it so we can have that conversation. When you're the fourth of 5 children, what you realize pretty quickly is get to the table early because there won't be any leftovers if you're not there, right? And shut up because you'll never be heard anyway. Again, and what I didn't tell you is my 2 oldest siblings are both my sisters. They're both women, right? Women today, girls when I grew up. And and then there were 3 boys in a row. What we realized real quickly is it didn't matter what we did, they were the bosses of the house, right? When my parents weren't there, they ran the roost and all we could do was just keep doing what we did. And I mention that for a reason though. I got a real close family. We talk a lot. We Zoom entirely too much for regular human beings. And we communicate. And as you get older, what you realize is sometimes you're talking over, through, and around each other. If you start talking, I may finish your sentence. Don't think me rude. That's just sort of how you learn to communicate in my house, all right? I want you to do that. Do ask questions if you have them. I guess I'll start with, who is Leah? Why is that person not here? She's nobody. She's dead to me right now, okay? Now, she's a colleague of mine who has done this presentation with me, and as I was updating one late last evening, it was still a chance she was coming, then she couldn't make it, so consequently you're stuck with all of this. Yeah, I know, trust me, I know, it sucks, I'm working on it. Right, so anyway, we're going to talk about DEI type things, but what you should know about me, and let me be real clear about this, I've said it 3 times if I haven't said it before, I'm just a lawyer, that's what I am, all right? I'm not the guy who's going to tell you to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, though it is fun, right? I'm not the guy who's going to sit here and tell you, oh, that's right and that's wrong. I don't work for our embassies, and so consequently, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you fold your leg in an Arabic country and show a person the bottom of your soul, you've offended them. I'm not doing that, okay? That's way too deep. We're not doing that. We're just going to have a big general conversation about these kind of things. And I guess the best way to start, there are 1,000 ways to start, is to ask the basic question, by show of hands, who's had harassment training? Basic harassment training. Okay? Holly's looking at the room right now. Okay? And listen, and I mention that for a reason. It's very important because good harassment training, and I know you guys, you're like, oh my God, what are we doing? Well, it's Friday, August 13th. It's in the afternoon. They get to leave after this? You guys go home after this? No, you don't? You go back to work? Oh, hell, I keep it as long as I want to then. Okay. And let me say this, I am PG-13. I'm no worse than PG-13, but there's no Disney on what I do for a living. There really is not. I can promise you this. What does that mean? The beauty of doing what I do for a living, the beauty of doing what Holly does for a living is we work with people. And the more you work with people, the more you realize life is fun, right? The more you realize, and this is a statement that I have made over the course of my very long career, if it happens in life, it happens at work, okay? If it happens in life, it happens at work. So all that stupidity you hear about in life, that stupidity is happening at work. And so that makes what I do fun, because I'll get a call on a Friday afternoon, and they'll say, Victor, you'll never guess what happened. And I'll say, what? And they'll tell me. I'd be like, damn, no, we're going to guess that one. That's pretty good, though, right? So that's a part of what this DEI is all about, too. It's just that, and it's not just a black, white, man, woman, young, old kind of thing. It's all these things that make us so diverse and interesting. And it's cool that we're having this conversation right now because we just got some new census data out, which we'll talk about momentarily. Let me go back, talk about my communication style, because I know I'm being recorded, which is why I'm holding this thing. I have the ability to speak fast. Well, why don't you say something first then, girl? Damn, you can say, no, slow down. Look, I have the ability to speak fast. I can go way faster than this. But I can also assure you that when necessary, I can speak slower. When necessary, I can be sure that whatever I say that you need to hear, I'll even repeat, I ain't getting paid by the word. I can say a lot of stuff. You won't even know it's wrong or right. No, I'm playing. Right? But so if there's a moment in time, if I turn my back to you, for example, and I'm walking this way, I'll walk up this aisle or that aisle, and you don't hear me, just say, hey, Victor, what did you just say? I'm going to share a truth with you, too. And I don't share a lot of truths. I don't, because they're painful. But I'm going to be one of the few lawyers who will tell you a truth. And that is, not everything I say is important. It's not. Some of that stuff is just filling a moment so I can get to the next important thing. A lot of people tell you, listen to me, everything I say is important. I only tell it to my kids. My kids know, no, wait, let's wait. Daddy will tell us when he's serious, right? So that's okay too, though, because that's part of how we communicate. We communicate in ways in which we try to make people comfortable together and interact together. I want you guys to be comfortable with this. This is fun stuff. It's not easy. The reason I asked about the harassment training first is, frankly, in order to have a conversation about diversity, even just diversity, and you'll see where it comes in my program, you got to have these basic understanding of some of the laws that are in play and how they interact or how they affect what you do for a living, And that's another part of what I like. Everything I do is impacted by laws. Everything you do is impacted by laws, whether it's, in social services, right? Whether it's in accounting, wherever it might be, there are rules and reasons that they're doing those things, right? And so we'll talk about all that. All right. So let's go forward. And let me ask this question then. By show of hands, who's ever had diversity training before? Okay, should be fewer, and then like this whole full DEI, equity and inclusion kind of thing? Okay. The one thing I want to make sure we do is this. We want to make sure we have annual harassment training. That's really important for a lot of different reasons, And I will tell you that I believe this, and I say this quite sincerely. I'll mention my family. My oldest sister, Renee was a judge in Philadelphia for 18 years. Now, my father, just make sure you guys are clear, I'm looking at these seats right here, right? And I see the EC. My father was the head janitor at EC Glass High School. He had a 10th grade education, but he was critically important in everything that I am, right? I mean, this man was available. He was smart. He just didn't have opportunity to go further. My mother finished the 12th grade. And that's what we had. But we're first generation college. But I will say, whether they beat us right or whatever they did, they made sure you knew that education was important. My oldest sister was a judge, and I can tell you about her, and I will, right? My next sister, she's actually a superintendent of schools out in Dayton, Ohio, right? Really, really cool. Both went to UVA. I went to the University of Virginia too. So if there are Hokies in here, I will talk about you, right? I will. I got the mic. Hell, you don't have it, right? And I'll ask that momentarily. You know, and so I got another brother who went to the Navy and all kinds of stuff, and then another brother who actually is another attorney. So I don't know how we got these lawyers up in the house, but we got a whole bunch of lawyers for people who otherwise didn't do the law, right? But it's cool because it just lets you know how much and how different life can be. The reason I mention that, though, is those two, my sister who was the judge and the one who works for Department of Justice, Bureau of Prisons, they say I work for the man, right? Because I'm a management side attorney. So I work for the man. And what I say to them is, no, actually I don't, man. The best thing I do for a living, and how many people in here, by show of hands, are supervisors or managers? Okay, good. The best thing I do for a living is make sure we are all on the same page and we conduct ourselves appropriately according to law, make HR's job easier. Because if you do that, then everybody gets a fair shake at work. It ain't got nothing to do with being a man. The man's the person who can actually affect change. And you know who affects change? Businesses, where you work. Other than listening to your spouse at home and maybe having to tell your kids hell no, the one person you say yes to is your boss, your company, because we work for livings. Unless your last name is, back in the day you could have said Rockefeller or something. I could say Gates and I can say Musk or whatever it is. Unless your last name is that, most of us go to work to make a living, right? And so change does happen at work. And so I think work is a very important place. And so when people say I work for the man, I say, no, I actually work for all men and women. I do. Because if I get this stuff right, then we have fewer problems. That's why this is so important. That's why this stuff is like spot on. I pointed that way. Agenda. Let me say a few things. Have any of you ever seen me speak before? And you came back. You know what's really bad about this when he came in? Tell me your name again. Vincent. When Vincent came in, Vincent like, where's your sidekick? I'm like, she's in Richmond. Vincent was like, oh shit, I ain't never seen you present by yourself. This is gonna suck. That's what no, he didn't say the suck part. He didn't say that part. He didn't. I'm gonna tell you the truth, right? But you know, it's fun because it is fun to play off of people. But I get to play off of you. And what I told Vincent is I'm old enough, man, and I've been flying solo for a long time. Even at home, my wife will tell you, yeah, he's solo. All right, so we got a rough agenda, and it's real important you know this. I got a PowerPoint presentation. You guys already have copies of it. I don't live by this thing, okay? I don't. I'm just going to tell you that I don't. We're going to talk about it. It's going to be a guide for us for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you want to stay, okay? It's going to be a guide. I know Holly's like, wait a minute, don't take advantage of me now. So we're going to talk about some general things, though. Unlawful discrimination. Unlawful discrimination. We're going to talk about understanding what implicit bias is. We're going to talk about valuing diversity. And we're going to talk about creating an inclusive workplace. And all that stuff, let me say this, you guys. Being a person who has done this work for a long time, and I've been dealing with issues of diversity and inclusion, I would dare say about 25 plus of my years of practice. So when I hear people talk about it today, like in 2021, like it's new, I laugh at that. I'm like, no, people have been this way for a long time. Y'all just catching up, right? Now make sure I'm still giving you the microphone that you need. So if there's ever a point I'm not holding it where you need me, just let me know, okay? But this stuff has been happening for a long time. And I think when you look at the agenda, and you look at this phrase, unlawful discrimination, let's be very clear about one thing. Discrimination is a good thing. Discrimination is a good thing. Yeah, that's right. I'm a black man in Chatham who just said discrimination is a good thing, right? Let me tell you why it's a good thing. Because we all discriminate. You do. If you look up the word discrimination, right, it means having a favor, making a choice. It means you prefer something. So not all discrimination is unlawful. You will tell your kids or your parents told you or somebody else mentioned to you, you're only as good as the company you keep. Stay away from that boy or stay away from that girl because they ain't nothing but trouble. They're teaching you to be discriminated, right? I got a 19-year-old son. I love that boy to death. He working me for points is what my daddy would say. I mean, he about to go off to college next Thursday. Not that I'm counting, but boy, that woman's gonna get cleaned the hell up, and I cannot wait for him to go. This COVID year, he took a gap year. Man, it's been tough up in my house. But I've tried to teach him how to be discriminated. But Daddy, I'm not, I don't want to be mean to people. I'm like, no, you don't need to be mean to people, but not everybody is looking out for your best interest. And he's a sweet kid. He's a good kid. His younger sister, which you haven't heard me mention yet, what I'll tell you about him is this. I tell people, Max, my son, he's 19 and he's a boy, so keep this in mind. He's 19 going on 16, 17, some days 12, 13. Ariana, 17, she's a girl, 27, 28, 29, 30. Her little frisky butt is way too grown, okay? And that's the difference between boys and girls. Now, I'm gonna say this as my public service announcement to every male in the room that I can identify. If you have a significant other, man, woman, boy, girl, dog, I don't care. But if you have one and it happens to be a woman, you're wrong. Just accept it and go forward. Don't try to argue your point. You've wasted my time and yours. All you've done is made an hour problem a 3-day problem. Don't do it, okay? Public service announcement, I'm done, moving forward. Not all discrimination is wrong though, you guys. It's not. I am a proud alum of the University of Virginia. When I was young and a little less complete, I played football at the University of Virginia, so I have a strong affinity. So when I see a turkey on the back of a car, right? Oh, don't look at me like that. I know you got a badge on, but I got the mic right now. When I see a turkey on the back of a car, I think to myself, who would go to a school for turkey? Who would do such a thing? Who would support that school whether they went there or not? Because they gobble. I mean, they actually gobble right at the stadium. Don't talk to me about the success of the football team against my team. I was 2-2. We have sucked lately against them. I get that. He's looking up scores right now. I can just tell. I know where it's going, right? But the fact of the matter is, and I tease because I am that person who, when Tech is playing anybody else other than UVA, I'm cheering for Tech. You know why? They didn't come with the Virginia. It's a Virginia school. I don't know if you guys watch the Olympics or not, but I am an Olympic fan. I watch crap that I would never watch on another day. I mean, I'm watching gymnastics, I'm watching swimming, and I'm watching, you know what I tell you what I really got into? Water polo. Man, water polo. And particularly the girls' water polo. How in the world? Can all y'all swim? Who can swim by show of hands? Can you really stay afloat in that water that long as they are, and have people like dragging you from the bottom, and then you swim down there and not drown for real? No, I'm serious. Watch that stuff, man. And listen, they got different body shapes and everything. Some of them people are super, super buff. Some are a little more like me. But they can do stuff in water that I can't imagine doing. And I think I can swim. Then I realized I watched them, and I'm like, oh, hell no, I really can't swim. I'm just a guy who can get to the edge and hold on, right? Discrimination. During the Olympics, man, I'm open. If it's on, I'm watching it. And I was mad at NBC because they didn't let me know about the apps until too late, so I had to go find stuff after the fact. I love track and field. That's my real thing, my real passion. But I discriminate. I discriminate against all sorts of things. Non-season, I'm not watching, well, I don't know. I may watch beach volleyball. That's going to sound terrible, but I do like beach volleyball a lot. Sounds a little typical of a male, but it's true. I do. I'm not going to lie to you. But as I was sitting with my wife and they were doing the males diving, and they were in these things that were smaller than my watch band, she seemed to be having a good time that night too. And I'm like, well, damn, it's because I got a 12-pack. Okay, fine. We discriminate, though. I mean, keep it in mind, we discriminate. You'll learn something about me. I don't tell jokes, I don't know jokes, but I think life is funny as hell. Life is awesome, right? And so we fight through all these things because life is so good. Unlawful discrimination. For those of you who haven't had harassment training, and for those of you who have, this is a refresher very quickly. And I think this is important, right? Because I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to say this to you with non-equivocation. You really can't have a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion until we cover the base. If our baseline ain't covered, it's like, you know, I can't remember who that lady, Maureen somebody, but she talked about strong bones. The relationship has strong bones. It's like if you build a house that's got a good foundation and you use good 2x4s or whatever it is up to code, you got a good set of bones. And then you build on top of it. You can't do a DEI conversation, though, for real without having the base, right? So for those of you who haven't had harassment training, write her. Say, we got to get this right away. And then she gets to say to all of your bosses and anybody else, listen, it's not downtime. This saves you. I can talk to you about the economics associated with it. I can tell you from a legal standpoint, if you fail to have this kind of training, the impact it can have in lawsuits. I can tell you how this puts you ahead of the curve. I can. I don't spend a lot of time doing it, but trust me on this. When I get to walk into court and say, Your Honor, or ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client has had diversity training and harassment training on an annual basis. So they are not going to be likely to allow for people to discriminate. Even if something bad happened to him or her or them, it's probably not discrimination. It's something different. And that's real, okay? So we have this conversation. We talk about these laws real quickly, just so you guys have the base. Let's talk about Title VII. Title VII is the granddaddy or grandmother of employment laws, okay? That law was passed in 1964. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about it momentarily. I'm gonna tell you that there are laws that are older, but those laws deal with like wage and hour, the Fair Labor Standards Act. That law was passed in 1937. That's when it talks about making sure you pay people overtime and all that kind of stuff properly. And then the other law that's even older is something called the National Labor Relations Act. That's actually very important for you in Pittsylvania County now. That's the law that allows unions to exist and allow employees to negotiate. In the private sector, that's always been an issue since 1934. In the public sector in Virginia, it was a non-issue until July 1. Okay, so things can happen. And we can talk about what's good, bad, or indifferent. I promise you we can. What I'm gonna tell you is this. You're always better off working directly with your employees. And the way you're better off is they are treated fairly, you treat them fairly. The policies that are in place are followed. If they need to be tweaked, they're tweaked. And these laws give us a good foundation. So let's go through the laws very, very quickly. My friend thought I wasn't gonna use the pointer. He didn't know who he was talking to. I'm gonna point anytime I can. This is fun. So Title VII bars discrimination. Let's be clear again. Remember I told you discrimination by itself isn't bad. It's only unlawful discrimination that's a problem, right? Unlawful discrimination is if you discriminate against me based on my color, my national origin, my race, my religion. It doesn't show up on that screen. That's so interesting. It sucks it in. Pregnancy, sex, including orientation, gender identity. Let's talk about those very, very quickly. That is the granddaddy or grandmother of all employment laws. That law in 1964, and I think I'm right when I say it was passed July 1 of 1964, because that's when most laws are passed, right? Think about that for a second. Now, some of you are so young that it'll be lost on you. But when you think about my dad, who was working in 1964, it was totally appropriate for him to go apply at a place of business and ask to do a job as a maintenance guy, janitor. He was a janitor. He wasn't even really maintenance. He could do a lot of stuff. He was amazing, right? And they could say, no, we don't hire blacks here, right? They could say, no, we don't hire males here. They could say, no, we don't hire females here. It was no law that barred that discrimination, right? So if it was okay on June 30th, come July 1 of 1964, it became illegal, right? So you have to think about the context in which we live, in which we operate. That's real stuff. So let's jump around and talk about some of these real quickly. Let's make the easy ones first. Race, we know what race is, black, white, right? Hispanic, and people will say, Victor, but wait a minute, Hispanic's not a race, it's not a race. I'll say to you, I know it's not, but I will say to you, people recognize it when we talk about litigation and discrimination, okay? We talk about national origin. That's where you're born. That's where you're born. I have a good client I was talking to just yesterday, and I said, hey, how you been doing? How's COVID been? I hadn't spoken to her in a little bit. And she said, oh, good, I just got back from visiting my parents in, are you ready for this? Bermuda. I've been to Bermuda for a month and a half visiting my parents. And I said, you suck. When I go visit my mama, she in Dayton, Ohio. My father, God rest his soul, is in Lynchburg. I don't get to go to Bermuda. But that's her national origin, right? It's where you're born, where you're from. That's real important. Doesn't change, right? Your race doesn't change, your national origin doesn't change. Let's jump real quickly to religion. And religion is a big deal when you hear about it. Religion is that faith that you have or don't have. Okay? Religion is that firmly held belief that you have. The reason that's a big deal right now, because the vaccine has brought that to the forefront. As people are talking about whether you can mandate a vaccine or not, and you can, right? Whether you can mandate a vaccine or not, whether you should wear a mask or not, and frankly, I think you can. We can talk about that too. But the fact of the matter is, oftentimes there are two exceptions, and we'll talk about one momentarily, medical conditions, disability, and the other is your faith. Your faith. Right? But there are people who actually have to ask some questions because there are people out there who are just not being honest about their faith in order to avoid the vaccine and or avoid having to be mandatory to take it. Right? I'm just telling you. Religion, any firmly held belief, and it can be anything. It can have a God or not, theistic or not, and it can be something that's not commonly recognized. The easy ones are like something like Wiccan. I will tell you, I had a call from a client a couple years back. And I'm a guy who, I've been doing this for a long time, right? So I answer things. I answer a lot of questions, and I get a lot of them right. She will. She is so damn good. She's like, Victor, what about this? I'm like, damn, Holly, stop asking me that question. I got to read it now. But I had a call from a client. It was an afternoon. It was a big client. I mean, they have somewhere upwards of 15 to 17,000 employees, depending. Big client, right? And they had a policy. They're a healthcare provider. They had a policy, and I'm going to tell you about this too, since if you pay attention to me, you'll see it. They had a policy of no visible tattoos. Look at your wrist. No visible tattoos. They had that policy, right? But they had this one healthcare provider who had on a short sleeve, scrub set, and his tattoos were visible. I got my first tattoo, my only tattoo, August of 20. I'll tell you about it. It's not insignificant. Yeah. And I don't believe in tattoos. You should know this. But I'll tell you about that later, right? So I'd be violating the policy. And sorry, I'll put this up, right? But the employee came to them and said, but wait, my tattoo is part of my religious beliefs. I'm a member of are you ready for this one? The Church of Body Art Modification. All right, see, my friend laughed. Now, again, you guys, I'm PG-13, and I'm not going to say the word I'm thinking, but I was like, that's bull. What is that, right? I did. And I was like, you know what? Tell them to go cover the tattoos up. We ain't asking for a lot. We're not telling them to remove them. We're just saying cover them up. Cover them up. That's what I said, right? And I'm admitting this to you guys right now. Is that malpractice? We'll find out in a minute, right? So the day went on. I continued to work. And then at the end of the day, I have another partner I work very, very closely with. He's been there just about as long as I have, and we are co-chairs of our section, and we're really good friends. And as we want to do at the end of the day, I yell over, hey, Tom, how was your day? He said, good. We come and meet right sort of in the middle. And I said, yeah, man, I had the craziest call. I had a call about somebody who had an exposed tattoo because the dress policy said no exposed tattoos, and it was about the Church of Body Art Modification. He said, oh, it's bull. And then because you do, right, I Googled it, because Google is amazing, right? I ain't got to go to Webster's or American Heritage Dictionary. I can Google it, and damn if it didn't exist. Technically, it actually existed with tenants. It had a website. It had stuff. Now, how many followers it had doesn't matter, because when you're actually dealing with issues of religion, you don't necessarily test, the reasonableness of the religion. You're just testing whether it's a truly firmly held belief or not. I still don't think he had a firmly held belief. You know why? Because he covered them up. He did. Because if he had come back, he would have, I would have said, well, we may have to do some accommodations here or not. But the thing to keep in mind about religion, and we'll talk about it, is that's minor accommodation. Minor accommodation. But religious beliefs are protected at work. Let's keep going. You notice, and I'll jump right now, I skipped over color. I didn't talk about color. I'm going to suggest to you without a doubt, in 1964, when color was added, Congress, without a doubt, well, what did Congress look like in 1964? It was by and large white guys. I mean, we can be real clear about that, right? It was. That's what it was. No big deal. Is the history. That's what it was. I can assure you when they added color in 1964, color meant the same thing as race. Color meant the same thing. One of the longest standing institutions in American history, and certainly with regard to black people, African Americans, is the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Now, that title really doesn't apply today. I'll give you another public service announcement. Don't call a black person colored. That's a bad day. I've actually been called colored before. I'll tell you about that too. The guy's name was Rowdy Gaines. I'll tell you about Rowdy. But color, in 1964, it was synonymous with race. In 2021, let me tell you unequivocally that color does not mean the same thing as race. Color means the complexion of your skin, right? Color means how light or dark you are, regardless of where your origin is or where you're from, right? The important thing about color really does take on an issue of culture and national origin, right? One of the best examples I can give you is, I can tell you that color discrimination is actually on the increase with EEOC charges. It's still a small number, but it's on the increase, while race is sort of neutral. And when I tell you that it's part of culture, I think it's important for you to know. So for example, in the Caribbean culture, color's a big deal. Color's a big deal. And the darker you are, the less in favor you are. How many of you guys remember the baseball player Sammy Sosa? Put your hands up. Where is he from? Do you remember? I'm going to tell you. From Dominican Republic. Sammy's from DR. A lot of great baseball players from DR. I really don't understand why, but I think it's when you ain't got a lot to do, you play baseball, you get really, really good, and you come to America and you make a lot of money. But if you remember Sammy Sosa, can anybody describe Sammy Sosa when he played baseball? When he played baseball, what did Sammy Sosa look like? Let me give you a hint. He's from the DR. If you've ever been to that island, either the Dominican Republic side or the Haiti side, Hispaniola, you'll know some dark-complected people. It's in the middle of the Caribbean, right? So it's no big guess. Sammy Sosa was a dark-complected man, definitely much darker than me, and he had really, really good hair, right? I'm just telling you what good hair is, right? He had wavy hair in the whole 9 yards. I used to have good hair. My kids made it gray, so I cut it. I still got plenty of it. I do. I mean, if I let it grow, I joined your club because it was fun to join, but I ain't have to join it. Vincent, don't talk about me right now. Right? But the fact of the matter is, Sammy Sosa was a dark-complected man. Who has their cell phone out right now? Google Sammy Sosa, somebody. Google images. And what I'm going to tell you is, Sammy Sosa is a product of his community. And if you look at a picture of Sammy Sosa today, Sammy Sosa looks like what? Let me give you a hint. He looks like he is whiter than any person in this room. I've already picked you out. I know who the whitest person is in here. And he is whiter than you. You can look around and guess. I'm not going to call you out. I said I picked you out. Just because I pointed over there don't mean it's not you. Don't look like it ain't you, right? But the fact of the matter is, do you have a picture of him? Just hold it up just so two people can just see it. Turn around so they can see it, right? That's what Sammy Sosa looks like today. And if you see it before and after, and what I'm going to tell you is that's a cultural thing. When asked about it, Sammy said, well, I had some blemishes on my skin, so I used a skin bleaching cream. People give Michael Jackson a hard time. Don't give Michael a hard time. He had a condition, right? But Sammy Sosa literally bathed in bleach. He bathed in bleach. He's happy with himself. That's okay. I'm not hating on it. But you just need to recognize how important or how insidious how we view ourselves can be, right? This otherwise very good-looking man looks totally different. Like his mother obviously said to him at one point, Sammy, what you doing, baby? Right? So color's a big deal. So color discrimination can occur. You can imagine if you work for somebody or work with somebody from a different culture, and let's be clear, I talk about different cultures. I am not the guy who's not going to tell you that the black community in America, the African-American community in America, we had our issues with color too. We did. It's not because we chose to have them. You can go back to historical times, and what you learn very quickly is the darker complected slaves were in the field. The lighter you became, the more likely you were to become into the plantation or into the home to work. Sally Hemings, and I love UVA, but I'm very clear about Thomas Jefferson, right? I think he's a great man. I think he was a smart man. I think his academic village is a large part of why I do what I do for a living. But I recognize that when Thomas Jefferson had children with Sally Hemings, those children became lighter and lighter. And they were more likely to go to France and learn and do other things, right? That's all part of history. We got to pay attention to it. If we don't pay attention to it, we're doomed to, and we're not going to do that. All right, so Title VII, protection, discrimination, unlawful discrimination, color, national origin, race, religion, pregnancy. There's actually a separate law on pregnancy, but what I will simply tell you is pregnancy is a protected law, and there are a protected status, and there are more protections for pregnancy every day, right? And I can talk to you about how many of you guys order Amazon? Oh, put your hands back down. All right, how many of you guys order from Amazon? You don't order from Amazon. You don't order from Amazon either. Do you order from Amazon? I paid for him to go to space. I did. I get my nuts from Amazon. I got a shower caddy for my son from Amazon. I ordered a refrigerator from Amazon. The dorm kind, not my house kind. Okay. The reason I mention that, though, and you're going to wonder, what the hell is he talking about? Don't worry about it. Follow me. If you order from Amazon, you've probably seen a UPS truck at some point in time, right? You know that phrase, what can Brown do for you? That's what they are. And one of my best friends works for UPS. He's actually a driver, right? One of my best friends. But what UPS does for all of us is UPS is willing to fight some of the stupidest fights from a legal standpoint, and I can say that, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. UPS and pregnancy, and the reason I mentioned, I'm going to tell you about a scenario very, very quickly. They had a driver. It was a woman. She was pregnant. She had a note from her doctor. And if you don't know this, UPS drivers, their job description, you know how you said what you have to do? Among other things, it says you have to be able to lift up to 75 pounds with or without assistance, right? Now think about it. You ain't lifting a lot of things, 75 pounds, without help, but there are some things you have to lift. She was pregnant. She went to the doctor. The doctor said they have to reduce that restriction, as you become more and more further along. They reduced it from 75 to 50 pounds. They reduced from 50 to 25. And they said with assistance or without assistance. And UPS said, can't accommodate that. They literally fought that case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Let me tell you something. It is very expensive to get to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, it is very expensive. People talk about, I'm going to sue you. People don't want to sue for real. I'm expensive as heck in litigation. I mean, really, like a lot of money. I can assure you that get to the U.S. Supreme Court, UPS had the pleasure of paying something well in excess of $1 million, if not even more, right? If not even more. Just to defend a decision that, frankly, any good HR person would have said, well, we accommodate people who are on workers' comp, don't we? We accommodate people who have disabilities, right? So why wouldn't we make it easier for her to do the job? The U.S. Supreme Court agreed with that logic. I'm going to suggest to you that they had lawyers who probably just wanted to say, yeah, let's fight, because they're getting paid. Because sometimes common sense needs to come to play. UPS and pregnancy, fascinating stuff. Sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Okay, fine. If you don't know that, no salt and pepper. Get to know it quick. They'll make you smile. It's a good doggone song. I wanted to say damn, but I felt like I shouldn't at that moment. Okay. Sex. In 1964, I can assure you it meant gender. It meant boys and girls. I can also assure you that in 1964, let's be clear, Congress is by and large white male. The statistics alone will tell us there were people in that room who were probably homosexual or bisexual. But they didn't want to come out the closet at that moment in time. Not 1964. It wasn't a cool thing to do, right? So in 2021, when we talk about sex and we say that sex includes sexual orientation, that's who you like, okay? And gender identity, that's how you present yourself, okay? There's nothing magical or new about that. I will tell you, these are all federal laws. You're going to see momentarily that Virginia, as of 18 months ago, not July 1, but before that, they already included orientation and gender identity as a protected status in the Commonwealth. That's important because generally Virginia has followed federal law all the way through, but we got ahead of that curve, got ahead of that issue. All right, let's go through real quickly. ADA protects people with disabilities. Not every person with a disability is protected. You have to be able to perform the essential, and I'm talking fast because you don't have to worry about this stuff for real. She knows it. But you have to be able to perform the essential functions of a job with or without a reasonable accommodation. UPS lady. Whether a reasonable accommodation to allow her to use a dolly, whether a reasonable accommodation to load her truck with packages that were 25 pounds or less. All those things were deemed reasonable by the U.S. Supreme Court, okay? But not every person with disability is protected. I love Stevie Wonder. I like Stevie Wonder, old Stevie Wonder. Fingertips, sign, seal, deliver. But if you know Stevie Wonder, what's the one thing about him that you know for sure is he's blind, right? He's blind. Stevie Wonder can't see. So if Stevie Wonder applied to UPS for a job as a driver, they could say to him, no. Stevie would say, but wait, I have a disability. And they would say, no. Stevie would say, but wait, you can get me a driver to drive me because I know the town real well, and that's a reasonable accommodation. And UPS could say, no, that's not a reasonable accommodation. Now, keep in mind science, right? Stevie could say, but wait, you could buy me one of these self-driving cars like a Tesla and put it, right? And then right now we can still say no to that too, okay? So not every disability can be accommodated. Age, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, how old are you to be protected under this law? Don't you answer. How old do you need to be protected under the ADEA? 50? 50 is a good number. Any other guesses? Oh, you better play. Don't make me call on you because I will. Sir, how old do you have to be? 45 is better. That's a good number. 50, 45. Who said 40? Oh, you cheated. No. It is 40. 40 years of age and older. 40 years of age and older, right? And I could tell you history about that law. The funny thing is, it actually started off that it was 65 as the old, and then it dropped to 60. It actually started reversed. And as people kept getting older, they kept reducing the number because they wanted to make sure they were protected, right? 40 years of age and older. Gina, that is a girl's name, but it is not what it stands for. That's the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Did any of you have to give up your human genome, your genetics, to come work here at Pittsylvania County? You did not. Now, how many of you have either spit in the tube and done Ancestry.com or done 23andMe or whatever it is? See, that group hangs out together. I did it. I spit in the tube, right? And I'm going to tell you, it's horrifying when you find out your history, when you think it's one thing, and then you find out it's something wholly different. Like, that wasn't my spit. That was somebody else's. Right? Then I looked at my mama and said, no, there's mine. Right? That's genetic information. Okay? Now, most employers aren't using that. They don't care where you're from. They don't care about your connections. But I will tell you the way Gina came up very, very quickly is that there are genetic markers. And as we've gotten to know the human genome, right, one of my favorite movies of all time, and I mean when I say one of mine, it might be number one. I don't know what number two is right now. Jurassic Park. Love Jurassic Park. If you ever saw Jurassic Park, if you ever saw it in the theater, if you saw it like contemporaneously, that moment when they go across the crest of that hill and they see these herds of dinosaurs and the music picks up, dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, I dropped my, and I love popcorn. I put the popcorn down. I said, okay, this is cool. This is cool. And then they went back and they told you how they made the dinosaurs, if you remember that, right? And they got the DNA out of a mosquito and they put it in, and they matched the DNA with some frog DNA, which is why they didn't know if they were boys or girls or not. All right? It's all cool stuff. If you don't know, go watch it again. Trust me, it's worth it. You'll love it. But genetics play a role. How many of you have heard of something called the BRCA gene? Ooh, it's some trick question. Let me go a different way. What is October? What does October celebrate when you wear pink? It's not a trick question either. Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? And if you don't know this, my public service announcement for my females in this room is always have your exams, people, because you need to know your family history. And one of the significant traits in family history is the BRCA gene. That gene is a direct genetic marker towards your susceptibility to breast cancer, right? And that's where genetic information can come in. And if you're a self-employed person or you work for a company whose insurance premiums might go up, you could see they could find out you had the BRCA gene. They might say, ooh, we don't want you here anymore. This law makes sure that doesn't happen, okay? Right? Public service announcements, I love them. I'll talk about testicular cancer later if I have to, right? All right, fine. Then finally, did anybody here serve in the military? And I mean it when I say thank you for your service. That's not a light statement. My older brother served. I could tell you my story. You don't want to hear it. But there's a law, USERRA, Uniform Services and Reemployment Rights Act law, that protects our men and women who have served our country. This law came as a result of, and some of you may remember this either by study or by history, as a result of the way that our men, by and large, were treated when they came back from serving in Vietnam. If you remember that time, if you don't remember that time, look it up, research it. The manner in which our soldiers were treated by people who could not distinguish between the people who were doing what they were directed to do and their dislike for the direction itself, in the lens of hindsight, appalling. So this law ensures that kind of thing will never happen again, certainly not in the context of employment. That's all there is to it. There's a lot to it, but it's more fun stuff. All right, let's keep going. Let's go back, because I keep pointing the wrong way. Remember I talked about orientation and gender identity? The Supreme Court, you're flashing, is that important? Okay, so make sure you get it. The Supreme Court actually talked about this, and I will tell you that there was an interim Supreme Court case, it was called Bostick, that was decided. Bostick versus Clayton County, that was a transgender person who actually worked in a Parks and Rec situation And when the person came out as a female, it was a born male, they were terminated. In this case, went to the U.S. Supreme Court too. And what you know basically about this new guidance is it includes protections of discrimination based on sex-based stereotypes. Don't assume because I'm a boy that I'm going to like killing bugs. Right? I run from spiders, taking my word for it. I threw a suitcase at my wife because the spider was on it. It wasn't my fault. She said spider. I said where? She said there. I threw it. She just happened to be in the way. That was not my fault. It's a true story. I wish it weren't. It caused a long weekend. Sex-based stereotypes regardless of orientation or identity, prohibiting transgender people from dressing or presenting consistent with their gender identity. Let's make sure we talk about the next one. Equal access to sex-segregated bathrooms or locker rooms. It means that regardless of how you present yourself, you have to have the opportunity to go to whatever bathroom you choose. That was a big deal in Gloucester, Virginia, right outside of Richmond, right? That case went to the Supreme Court, went back to the Fourth Circuit, went to the Supreme Court. The young man since graduated, but the case is still going on because people are having a hard time. And trust me, we can talk about your stuff, you guys. None of this is off limits for me. You know, if you have thoughts about what that means or doesn't mean. I've had numerous intense conversations with people in doing this training. They say, you're not going to tell me my daughter's going to go into the bathroom with that freak right there, talking about me dressed like a woman, right? And I say to him, he said, they're going to rape him, they're going to molest him, they're going to do all kinds of things. And I said, you know what's interesting? I said, what you really find out is statistics. The people who have different identities or different orientation, they aren't committing the crimes. They aren't. It's the criminals committing the crimes. So you got to know this kind of stuff. But trust me, psychologically, it's some work. This ain't easy. All right, fine. Consistently using the wrong name or pronoun is harassment. Somebody comes to school, they present as Mr. They were born a woman and you refuse to call them Mr. or by their birth name. I have teachers who have done this I've had to fire, okay? But I've had to say, no, you can't work here because the law protects people. That's right. Even when the parents came in and said, please call my son by his name. I know he was born Victoria, but Victor is transitioning, and so please do it. We get caught up in our own beliefs, and that gets in the way of our ability to operate with people. And that's just something to keep in mind. Now listen, that's not an easy thing to say. There are people whose religion, whose firmly held beliefs tell them that's not right or wrong. And I get it. I get it. But what I tell you is this. What you do and how you conduct yourself in the privacy of your home or in a place where you might worship or anywhere else, that's your business. It's cool, do it. But the moment you come out and you work with people, these are the law of the land, right? A reasonable question. Well, Vic, you have to accommodate my religion, don't you? But not at the expense of someone else, right? So it's fun stuff, man. It's fun stuff. This ain't easy. I love people, but it ain't easy. All right, let's talk about Virginia real quickly. Protected classes. I'm mentioning these just because this is new. We will not spend a lot of time dealing with it because you have them all now. Virginia followed the federal law, and Virginia made the decision to create its own laws. I'm going to talk about one thing up here, and I'm going to hit this button one time too many because I don't remember what the last one is. Let's stop right there for a second. Virginia has race and color. You see that right there? In Virginia, there's something called the Crown Act, and I'm not going to tell you what it stands for. God knows I can't do it. But what it does, though, is protect hairstyles and traits that are associated with race. So if you watch the Olympics, for example, if you watch track, you saw women with some long braids. You saw women with some bright colored hair that my 19-year-old son loved, whose hair right now, by the way, is about as pink as your shirt. If that's not pink, that's what color his hair is. I'm like, damn, dude, really? My sisters taught me, ain't no fight you need to fight. He'll cut it. He'll be all right. All right? And it looked good. He got it cut the other day. It looked good. I'm like, no, man, you look good with pink hair. I can tell you about that too, Lord. Right? But hair traits are protected. It's interesting. I can tell you about all kinds of things. I worked in D.C., been in D.C. for a long time, loved D.C. There was a major hotel chain in D.C. They had a flagship hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. Front page of the paper, they had fired a woman who came to work who wore cornrows. This is a long time ago, but they did. And that was their stated reason. It doesn't match our professional image. It was legal at that point in time, right? In the early 90s. It was legal. It would not be legal today, right? So all these things are protected in Virginia. Now let's talk about it. I know you're like, Victor, we've been talking now for, oh shit, we've been talking an hour. Let's go. What is implicit bias? The reason that it's important to do what we just did, you guys, you gotta have an understanding what the law does. The law doesn't do a lot. You gotta be clear about this. The law says don't speed, right? If the speed limit, what's the speed limit on Main Street? 25? How fast you driving? If you're late for work, how fast you driving? Don't answer. 25, you take 5, 30, take 6, right? You're breaking the law. Let's be clear, you're breaking the law. The law doesn't ask a lot of us, but the law does say don't discriminate, don't break it. But we know that most times we look at the law like a suggestion. So it's important that we sort of know what the rules are, because all those laws we just talked about, you don't get a little discrimination. You don't get a little harassment. You get any, it's too much, right? Unlike speeding. So now let's talk about implicit bias real quickly. And the important thing about implicit bias is this. We all got it. We all got it. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of these kind of talks, and they're recorded in places, and I enjoy doing them. But I think it's important to recognize when we talk about implicit bias, I'm not saying that any particular man in this room is wrong, any particular race in this room is wrong, or any woman in this room is wrong. We all have prejudicial attitudes or thought patterns that affect our understanding, our actions, and our decisions in an unconscious manner. In an unconscious manner. That's implicit bias. It's the unconscious act versus the conscious act. I have, and you should know it true, and during this masking time, right, I got hoodies, I got black sweatshirts, and hell, I can be dressed like this. I have gotten on the elevator with women, by and large, sometimes white women. The purse comes from here to here. I see it. You know, like I'm making it up, right? And I ain't offended by it. I'm like, dude, move your purse. I don't blame you. Hell, if I could look inside, I would, right? I ain't taking none of it, but I've seen that. Now, I have my own. Let me be very clear. I get to travel a lot. I spent about 13 years as a child in Brooklyn, New York, Bed-Stuy. I go back to Bed-Stuy because I got family all over New York City. And when I go back to Bed-Stuy, let me tell you, dude, I pay attention. I see somebody walking with a pit bull, I start doing this. Dude might be a echo scholar. That's a UVA thing. He might be a neuroscientist working for, you name the organization, but in my mind, I see a dude walking with a pit bull. They got different agenda than I do. So we all have these biases. And if we don't recognize it, that's where you lose. You lose. We got them, right? So you have to recognize it. If they're unconscious and unintentional, you recognize it. Again, and let's be clear, you guys. I do this kind of stuff all the time. And I tell people, and I'm very candid about it, sir. I say, you know what? The last thing I can do is re-raise somebody. I can't re-raise people. Hell, you don't want to re-raise me. So all we can try to do is start having this conversation. And the more we have this conversation, the better off we will all be, right? Even for people who don't believe in this stuff, the more we talk about it, the better off we all will be. Unconscious and unintentional is real. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Is it a magnet? Oh, shit. I can break shit up in here. I ain't got no problem. There's a little Velcro. Once I decided I couldn't break it for real, don't tell him I did it though, okay? Because if he's distracted by that, and trust me, I'm the same kind of person. I will be in the middle of a workout and look over and see a piece of clothes that one of my kids left on the floor, and I'm like, damn, I got to get up off my bike and do what I'm doing. I got to pick it up because I can't sit there and do it, so I appreciate Vincent. Maybe it's a V thing. I don't even know, but I'm with you completely. You know what? Come on up. Just come on up. All right. You can't interrupt me. I mentioned it, right? Just because it's unintentional or it's a bias, it doesn't mean necessarily it's always bad. We take cognitive shortcuts. I'm not smart enough to talk about it, but people who study the brain will tell you, you don't hear a good 65% of what's said to you because your brain is filling in what's already happening. It is. It's like when you see a math problem. If it's a simple math problem, you jump to the solution long before you try to figure it out, right? It's only when it becomes more complicated and they have brackets around them and parentheticals that you start stopping and going, oh, Lord, this is why I stopped taking 9th grade math. That's your problem. Fix it, right? We all do it. Be mindful of your biases. That's all I'm telling you. When I grew up, there was a movie. When I grew up, please, a lot of movies. And I like movies, right? There was a movie called White Men Can't Jump. Any of you guys remember that movie? Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. Now, you got to know something, right? I was a young athlete. I used to have knees and ankles and all kinds of stuff. So when you told me white men can't jump, look at me, I ain't white. I was like, you're exactly right, they can't. But if you watch the movie, what you realize is Woody is the one who actually had the verticals. He was the one who could actually jump. You play enough basketball with people, you find out pretty quickly. Don't make that stereotype. You'll get embarrassed, right? But those are real, and we have to recognize we have them, because the more we have them, that'll prevent us from affecting our actions or behavior. We'll be more likely to believe that people can actually do what they say they can do or supposed to do. Implicit bias associations. We subconsciously link groups or characteristics. Women, nurturing. Black, powerful, is what I'm seeing. Man, aggressive. Straight, hardworking. Gay, likable. Old, grumpy. And that one's actually got something to it, I'm just going to say, right? But, we do that. And what we need to recognize, though, is when we do that, we're attributing things to a group. Men are so insensitive. Well, that's not true. I know a lot of women who are a lot more insensitive than I am, right? All women are gossips. Oh, every guy has engaged in some good gossip at some point in time. We like it, too. Old people don't keep up with technology. The fact of the matter is, I can tell you that my 84-year-old mother has gotten to like her portal so much that I can't talk to her regularly on the phone anymore. She's got to be looking at me. So things change. Millennials act entitled. Are there any millennials in here? You are. I know it. Yeah, you are. They act entitled because they are entitled. Why? Because we raised them. I'm teasing. Sort of, not really. It's a generational issue. I'm telling you, it's things we have to focus on and pay attention to. But when we talk about harmful generalizations, and we say things like men are insensitive, women gossip too much, keep in mind there's another whole set of ones that can turn into prejudice, right? And when they turn into prejudice, that's when you have a problem. All right, do me a favor, you guys. We have been going for 1 hour and 5 minutes, give or take. Let's take a 5-minute stretch break and come back, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. I'm not going anywhere. I get to stop sweating for a second. No, I know. Is the microphone working well? There's no lag time in the microphone. Yeah, we did. We only lost one person, and she said, oh, listen, I got so much to do. She said, I love it. You're the best speaker I've ever heard in my life. As a matter of fact, here, take this check. That's an unadulterated lie, right? But not the part about her working hard and her saying it was okay. I'm saying this to you guys quite sincerely. If I'm giving you what you want to hear, good. If I'm saying something and you want to go further on something, ask me. If I'm saying something, you're like, oh, no, dude, I already know that. I'm going to keep going anyway, but say it, right? It's okay. Let's go. We got plenty of time. We're going to be in good shape. I promise I will get you out. Let's go back real quickly. We talked about these generalizations about men, about women, about old people, about millennials. I had the example come up during lunch. I didn't eat when I came down. Don't worry. It's all good. I'm working on my girlish figure, and it's a mess, right? But the fact of the matter is, the comment was made, yeah, somebody said I was wandering around. They implying that I'm old. Not every statement is necessarily legal. Sometimes they're actually true. right? And nor, but the other comment, and this one is interesting. How many of you guys saw the movie, and I'm gonna say it wrong, what's the name of the movie? Is it Human Figures? No, it's not. Is it Human Figures? Hidden Figures, Hidden Figures, Hidden Figures, thank you. Yo, you get up here and try to remember shit off the top of your head like me and see how well you do. She up here laughing, well, how did he get that one wrong? How did he not remember his Hidden Figures? I mean, that's literally, come on. I thought I liked you when you walked in. I thought the whole row seemed so nice. And then you just told me you're not. Holly? That's the smartest man in the room. Watch your back, man. The bus is coming. All right, fine. Hidden Figures. The other comment that was made, though, was interesting, was that, my department, the women have a bathroom right inside the department. I got to walk outside. And I said, just get up early like me, leave often, you'll be all right? But the reason I mentioned Hidden Figures, if you saw that movie, how many of you saw Hidden Figures? And you knew the name of it, you laughed at me, you haven't seen it? First of all, you haven't raised your hand once. You haven't had harassment training, you're lying. You haven't had diversity training, you're lying twice. You haven't seen Hidden Figures, you're lying 3 times. Okay, I'm just picking on it because I can. I'm gonna sit right here and stop bothering people. But if you haven't seen Hidden Figures, I'm gonna suggest to you it's a movie worth watching. It might be on Netflix, it might be on something else. But it really does sort of give you a sense of the era and time. The movie, and this is what should catch your attention from the very beginning. When the movie starts, I think it starts in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, okay? Which is where like the Greenbrier is or something like that. It starts somewhere around there. That's not important to you. What's important is every bit of the rest of the movie occurs in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in Hampton, Newport News, Tidewater, Virginia. The movie's about these women, these people, but these particular women who were like human calculators, who literally helped our first men fly into space. It's amazing, and it's based on a true story. I mean, all of it's based on a true story. It's a fascinating thing, right? In point of fact, NASA's naming one of their brand new buildings after one of the key figures in this movie, Hidden Figures. So it's worth your watching. These women happen to be black, and it's interesting too, because one of the scenes shows, and again, this is all part of DEI. Historically, it's fascinating stuff to pay attention to. One of the scenes shows when she's working in this office setting, and the coffee's never made for her, right? She can't drink out of the same coffee pot as her coworkers. Fascinating stuff. But the one that really caught my attention, if you watch the movie, there's a scene, and the scene goes on where you see her get up out of her desk. She stands up, and she walks fast, across campus. I mean, it's at least a half a mile, and I think that's what it was, and it could have even been longer, right? And she ends up going into the restroom. Now, when I first saw it, just to give you perspective, because this movie is about 2 years old, give or take. When I first saw it, could be 3, but whatever it is, when I first saw it, I thought she took her papers with her, so I thought she was getting a quiet place to work, because if you saw the typewriters and things, it was just a bustling office. I didn't realize it was way more basic than that. She was taking a bio break, and she could only go to the colored restroom, which was a mile across campus, give or take, whatever it was. It's a fascinating movie, and it's worth your watching, because it does give you context about the stuff that we're talking about. And it's well worth your watching. We talk about these prejudices and generalizations. Let me be very clear. I talk to a lot of people, and I'm the guy who will say this to you unequivocally. Anybody who tells you the world's not better today, they are looking for too much. And I will say that to them to their face. The world is significantly, America is significantly, Virginia is significantly, Chatham is significantly better than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Hell, 10 years ago. It is better. And anybody who doesn't want to tell you that, they're lying to you. Now, have we had some setbacks? Absolutely. Sure. Setbacks happen every day. You can't progress without setbacks. But I believe that, and I believe that when I say a word like prejudice, I say it in the context of there are still people who have bad thoughts, you guys. Let's be very clear. Anybody who tells you otherwise, they're lying to you too. Okay, there are. But generally speaking, when you start dealing with people with prejudice today, they are tempered by their experiences, by the law, and by their ability to work with other people, right? I believe that. I'm a firm believer there are more better things out there waiting for us than bad things, even as bad as you see. Prejudice, in-group, out-of-group, attachment to one's own group, negative attitudes towards others. I am not I take that back. I'm about to say something that's not true. I don't talk about politics. I don't waste my time doing it, right? I will tell you, when I grew up, don't forget, I've told you about my parents now, right? You know my parents, Gene and Tommy Cardwell, amazing people. My parents had no basis for this bit of advice, but they gave all of us, and I remember to this very day, the advice that, and this is so funny because this is how they said it. Now, when you go to a cocktail party, now hit pause for a second. Let me assure you, my parents had never been to a cocktail party. They never had. They did go to social events. I mean, let me tell you, they were not like they were rude. They were cool-ass people. But they didn't ever go to a cocktail party. But their advice, and I can hear it to this day, when you go to a cocktail party, there are two things you don't talk about. What were they? Say it again. You didn't grow up in my house, did you? No, you didn't, right? I heard you say you didn't grow up in my house either, right? Because that was a universal thing that we all knew. Why did you not talk about politics and religion? Because those are deeply personal things that you didn't need to infect a conversation with. Because we all agreed it'd be great, but if we don't all agree, then we don't infect the conversation with something so personally held. In 2021, what do you have to talk about? You got to know whether you voted for him or her, and whether you think that the vaccine is right. And heaven forbid, the moment we start talking about science and politics, I'm not judging, I'm just telling you, the phrase is we've jumped over the shark, okay? Stuff that we shouldn't be debating about, we're debating about. Politics and religion. Now, I'm going to suggest to you, the more we can get back to the way you were raised, the way I was raised, and 99% of you in this room, because I think most of you said the same thing, it's not going to suck for us, right? We don't have to find reasons to disagree. It's hard enough working and living. Comment. Attachment to one's own group or others, and that's why I mentioned it, because right now, it's not a neighbor, you know what I mean? Like, if you know Roanoke, where I live in Salem, you go down this big main street, you get to a Sheetz and you turn left, and then you turn left, and then right here, there's this house. I mean, literally, and again, I don't care who you voted for, because, coming down here, I rode through that little town that's got the Church of Trump. Boone's Mill. Oh, you don't know it? Oh, you don't know it? Oh, some of you know it. Oh, trust me. Oh, listen, I don't care who you voted for, that shit's scary. Right? It's a church. And it's a store now, and they had everything. This house right here, remember I turned off at the street in the street? This house, literally the day after the election, this guy put up an impeach Biden flag. And I don't mean a little yard flag, little garden flag, I mean flag, right? So I have to ride past this house. I got other ways I can go. I go here, and I'm home, all right? But it's a fascinating thing, right? Because we gotta find others. Right? We got to find others. And you think about this for a second. There are a lot of people who I did or didn't vote for, a lot of people I liked or didn't like, but they were all statesmen. They were people. Ronald Reagan was a statesman, a communicator. Whether you liked everything about him or not, he was. Bush 1, statesman. Bush 2, statesman. Clinton, like him or not, still statesman. I can go back in time or forward in time. We change when we start name calling. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Makes it easy to have others when you start name calling. Learned stereotypes and prejudice are hard to change. We embrace anecdotes that reinforce their biases. We look for things that confirm what we know. And that's a scary thing in 2021. You know why? If you get most of your news from Twitter or some other thing on the internet, and you're actually reading some other, you can easily find something that will reinforce every bit of ignorance you got. Right? It was a cartoon that somebody sent around. I saw it this morning. And it showed vaccine research. And the vaccine research was these scientists in this room in lab coats, and they showed tubes and all kinds of things. And I'm not picking on people, I'm just telling you what the cartoon said. And if you don't have the vaccine, consider it, at least do something, take care of yourself, take care of others around you. The other cartoon right below the other picture, it was a real picture. It was a person, it was a woman, and she's on the toilet, and she was on her cell phone, and it said anti-vax research. We can find ignorance to support our ignorance anytime we want to. And that's what this is about. We can reinforce our own biases or prejudices anytime we want to. The hard part is trying to see beyond our own nose and admitting that you have them. I mean, when I saw White Men Can't Jump, I knew it was true. Then I watched the movie, I was like, damn. Then I played basketball with a couple of white guys who were teammates of mine at UVA. I was like, man, they real good. You learn to accept differences. Go forward, right? Tendency to allow some exceptions without changing bias. Some of my best friends are, oh God, if you say that, stop. If you ever find yourself saying it. Some of my best friends are gay. Don't say it, don't say it. Because if you say it to a person who happens to be gay, they'd be like, well, dude, I'm not your pet monkey. Don't. Some of my best friends are girls. Don't say it. My wife, she didn't want me to say it. It's true, though. Shh. I'm in Chatham. She's about 150 miles away. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. All right. Connections between race and characteristics lead to discrimination. It's just true. You got to pay attention to it. We'll talk about it some more. This was a real study, and listen, it matters. It's real. 2003 study, but it was a help wanted ad, and this stuff happens every day. I don't know why we even have a 2003 article here, and I can tell you every day. Help wanted ads using fake names that sounded African American, and you name them, Lakeisha, you know, listen, names, my son's name is Victor O'Neill Maximus Cardwell. Boy got 4 names. Why? Because I stuck mine on the first 2. My daughter's name is Ariana Blue Cardwell. I had choices, but frankly, I didn't like any of them names that I didn't want to say or pronounce or spell wrong. I didn't. I probably spelled theirs wrong anyway, because I can do that. Each resume had a very, quote, African-American sounding name, and the whites received 50% more interview callbacks. You guys, there's nothing magical about that, right? That's just a stat. It's real. Apply for housing, and go look for apartments. We have a history of distinguishing and separating people, and our job is to recognize it and move forward. It is not to cast blame. I ain't got time for blame. I got to start figuring out how to value diversity. How do we make ourselves better? When you are serving the taxpayers of Pittsylvania County, when you are doing your jobs, by definition, you have to value. There are people you don't like, and I don't blame you. There are people a lot of people I don't like. Black, white, Puerto Rican, there's a lot I don't like. There's a lot I like. I can tell you more about my stereotypes. I am guilty as heck. My wife and I will go out to dinner. We'll sit there, we'll have dinner, it'll be fun, we'll have a drink maybe. And then we're ready to go, but it ain't time to quite go home yet, right? Because we used to have babysitters at 19 and 17. We still need babysitters right now, but it's for different reasons. Is to keep them in the house as opposed to whatever the heck they're doing, right? We'll go out, and invariably, and she will tell you, and listen, look at me right now, and every person in here who doesn't like me, go ahead and throw something at me. Because when we get ready to close tonight, right? Generally speaking, we haven't had a chance to do a whole lot during the week. That's my excuse. But I will say, she'll say, what do you want to do next? Now, don't listen, I live in Roanoke. If you haven't, go to Mill Mountain, look at the star, look over the star. It's beautiful, romantic. If you haven't, go down to the Greenway and look at the water. I mean, it's beautiful. But you know where I want to go? Anybody got one guess? And I'm going to tell you, guess the craziest place you can think of. And you all know it. Where do I say let's go? I'm going to help you out. Walmart. I go to Walmart. You say Walmart? I thought I heard you say it. I thought I heard it. Why do I go to Walmart? Walmart is fun as hell. When you go to Walmart and you watch John Q. Public or Susie Q. Public, oh my God, it's free entertainment. I mean, you know I'm telling the truth, right? Oh my God, it's crazy as hell. I mean, it don't matter what Walmart you go into. And I love Walmart. I shop at Walmart. I'm a fan of Walmart. Let's be very, very clear. But you can walk in Walmart and you can see somebody who got on some shorts they shouldn't have on. You can see somebody who got on some pants, oh no, they shouldn't have them on. You can see somebody whose hairstyle is, oh no, they should have stopped that. Their friends should have stopped them. That's how you know you got good friends or not. When your friends say, oh no, girl, don't do this. No, sir, no, you look good in black, but not that shirt. They need to tell you this. Because Walmart, they end up there. And I do. It's free entertainment. I love that shit. Stuff. Oh, shoot. I value diversity at the highest levels because it's free entertainment. I ain't got to pay to. I tell my kids, and this is true, I love what I do for a living. I don't pay to go to anybody's zoo. Love DC Zoo because it's free. I go to the Bronx Zoo every so often. Been to San Diego Zoo. But generally speaking, I watch people. You watch people, ain't nothing an animal can show you that you ain't seen. People are amazing. Your next date night, Walmart. Trust me. All right, this stuff is crazy. Look, you know, the reason I asked about harassment, the reason we spent time going through those laws, and I mean this quite sincerely, you guys, we can have this conversation, but I'm going to suggest to you it's worth having a conversation again. The next time I want everybody to raise their hands that they've had harassment training and that you've had this training. Because this is a layer. This is a cake. Think of it as the first time we have a deep conversation about it, and then the second time. Because you're going to go home. You're going to interact with your family members. You know, a holiday is coming up at some point in time. What month is this? This is August. Where is the month going, right? But August. So we're going to be at Thanksgiving, and you're going to have that cousin, that uncle come in, and you're going to be like, oh, my Lord, who let that person out? They must be at Walmart. right? You got that. It's hard to talk about embracing diversity and valuing diversity and recognizing your implicit biases. And those are two different issues, right? That's easy, I think. You have to recognize, Vincent, I'll show you. This has been bothering me all day. Most importantly, because somebody had M&Ms and didn't share them, right? But it's been bothering me all day. But you can't really talk about embracing diversity until you understand the basic tenets of the law. If you think about it this way, the law does this. It creates a tabletop. It says don't discriminate, don't harass, don't assault, don't litter, right? It says all sorts of things, don't do this. There's nothing in the law that says be nice to people, accept them for who they are, create an environment where they can thrive and exceed. We're way up here. And the moment we start, let's get clear, recognize our implicit biases and the things we bring to the table, we can start having conversations about embracing diversity. And that's why you sort of do it this way, right? You talk about the table, you create the level first about the law. You talk about recognizing who we are, and we all got it. I mean, I just went through a few. I mean, listen, I'll be very clear. I have a bias against tattoos, right? My daughter wants a tattoo. She's 17, she hasn't got one. My son's got 3, 4. And I'm like, dude, what's your rule? He knows I got a simple rule. Not below the wrist, right? Because I got to be covered with a shirt, not above your neck collar. Those are simple rules. It's your body after that, you'll decide, right? Like I said, right now he got pink hair with some lines cutting the side and all kinds of stuff. He's a good-looking dude. I ain't sure. I just don't want him to be Post Malone. If you don't know who Post Malone is, that's a kid he's got some serious self-esteem issues, right? So, I didn't like tattoos. I didn't. I never wanted one. My family bought me this T-shirt, coolest T-shirt in the world, and I actually bought my sister one, and I'll tell you about it momentarily. But the T-shirt says, and I've always said this, scars are like tattoos, but with better stories, right? I can show you about my ruptured Achilles tendon. I can tell you about the two knee surgeries, shoulder surgery. I can tell you about all of them. Most of them are tied to football or something else in life, but I can tell you about them. I got stories. So But then my son went to a wilderness program, and we were sitting out there in the middle of the Chattahoochee Forest. He said, Daddy, when I graduate from this, will you get a tattoo with me? And I said, yes, I will. I wasn't drunk. I should have been. I said, yes, I will. I said, we'll do it. And I was thinking, this is how naive I am. I had a vision. I said, Max, I'll design it, because if I'm going to put it on my body, I want to make sure it means something. And I said, this is embracing diversity. So I took a pen and a piece of paper and I sketched, because I can sketch. I can't, I'm not saying I'm an artist, but I can sketch. I had sketched a fire, because it was sort of like a ranger type training, right? I had sketched a fire, and my sketch was about that big, right? I was naive. But I had sketched a fire and some trees to symbolize the forest. I had always, long before Black Lives Matter, I would say goodnight to my son, and I would say, and this is true, do it to this day, strong black man. That's what I would say to him. Strong black man, because the world is different for you. You gotta be a strong black man, right? And so I said, okay, we'll put a fist on there, because I've always done that. People think it's Black Lives Matter, actually a strong black man. Sort of similar, but not the same thing. And I said, okay, we'll do this. And I had it about this big. He went to get this tattoo first. And then when he went, he said, Daddy, we have to get a red-tailed hawk. Because in indigenous American, Indian, Native American culture, that shows growth and independence. I said, okay, cool. All right, I can put a red-tailed hawk right inside my little circle. He goes and gets his first tattoo. What did he do? Because I thought we were getting matching tattoos. What did he do? Where did he get his? That boy got a skinny chest. It's all across his whole chest. It's like, what the hell? Wait. Oh, no, we're not doing that. And he went to a really reputable and skilled tattoo artist. But I was like, oh, no, we're not having matching tattoos anymore. But then I went to my guy who is well-reputationed in the whole 9 yards, and he did the drawing and put the ink on me in the whole 9 yards, and he came out, and the ink went from here to here, and I was like, oh, shit, that's more than I thought I was going to do, right? But at that point in time, I was in for a penny, in for a pound. I said I was going to do it. Scars are like tattoos, but with better stories. Make sure you get a tattoo that has a story. Holy crap. Yeah, I talk about my son a lot. He's a special young man. My daughter, when he gets out the house, she'll spread her wings. It's all wrong. What makes you diverse? Look at this thing, you guys, and again, be very clear. As we have this conversation, I talk about stuff from my perspective because my perspective is the one I got. But I recognize anybody who talks to you about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, who does not recognize that it's greater than male, female, black, white, young, old, generational or not. It's everything that makes us us. Ethnicity, language, orientation, perspectives, gender, nationality, religion, how we think, how we process. There are those of us who like to see things in writing, diagram everything. There are those of us who don't. Tell me I got the concept, right? Age, race, job levels, physical abilities or disabilities, skills, experiences, culture, and those are just some of the things that make us who we are. Birth order in your home. And I'm gonna suggest to you, everything you hear about this, don't just let it apply to work. Go to your house, look at your house. Look at your house and think about, there are 4 people who live in my house along with a dog and a cat. Used to have a bearded dragon, poor Louis, he was the one thing I liked in the house. I don't like the rest of them. I mean the people too now. There are days he just get on my nerves. I went home yesterday, my trash can and recycle bin was still down there. I got 2 able-bodied kids who sitting at home and they just watching TV, doing whatever. I'm like, why the trash can down here? So yeah, when I say I don't like them, sometimes I really, I love them, but I don't like them. I had a lizard. So my house is full of diversity, right? Dog, cat, 4 people. I would suggest to you, everything you think about in here, and we're gonna talk about one concept momentarily, everything you think about in here, think about how it impacts your house. When people talk about diversity, I don't think I have it in here, but I'm gonna tell it to you right now. There's a definition for diversity. I think it's real important that we have some clear understanding of what it means, okay? And I'm gonna steal this definition. I have stolen it now. It was penned and authored by a guy named Dr. Roosevelt Thomas. Dr. Thomas passed away 5 to 10 years ago. I had the pleasure of speaking on a panel with Dr. Thomas. Guy was good. He was sort of the grandfather or the father of diversity. He was talking about the issue of diversity in the 80s and 90s. I mean, long before people started talking about it. And he had a definition, and it's a good definition. I commend it to you. And I don't believe it's in the PowerPoint, but I'm gonna say it to you right now. If it is in here, go for it, right? But it's the collective mixture of differences and similarities wherever you might find them. Most people, when you hear them talk about diversity, they say differences. But it's not. It's that collective mixture of differences and similarities wherever you might find them. So I suggest to you, go home, look at your house. Think about the fact that you raised those kids together, same kids, right? Year apart, and how different they can actually be. It's a true concept. It's fascinating, right? Anyway, benefits of a diverse workforce, we talk about that because we've got to make it make some sense to work too. Just like in your home, every time we get different and better ideas, not all of them are good. Now let's be very, very clear. Let's see people come from left field, that's the wrong hand, left field with their ideas, and you get to reject them completely. But sometimes there's even a nugget of, oh, you know what, if we do that piece right there, so you do get improved creativity and innovation, you get higher employee retention. Let me talk about my millennial friends. Millennials are motivated differently than, and I'm not gonna do all the generations, but the greatest generation, they had their own internal clocks, their own internal engines, okay? Then baby boomers came along, saw those people, worked hard, but started having some other, right, affiliation or association. I can talk to you about all the generations, we go next, but when you start talking about millennials, the motivation sometimes is different. Most of us grew up in an era where I put my head down, got my job done. If I got my job done, got a good review, got a raise, I'm good. There are other people, though, who say, no, I need to understand why I'm doing this, how I'm part of the process, what it means to be in Pittsylvania County, and why does this matter? That gives me job satisfaction. The idea that I understand how I'm not just a cog in the scheme, but I'm part of a bigger picture. Motivational tools are important. Keep them in mind. Less legal liability. Listen, I am the lawyer who will tell you you do not want to get in court. People say it all the time, I'm going to sue you. You don't want to be sued. It sucks. You don't want to sue somebody. It sucks even more. You know why? They got something you want, and they're going to control your life until you get it or not. I'm a firm believer it's the best system in the world, and it still sucks. And I do it every day. I do it every day. Love it. Proud of it. But I'm just telling you that. Less legal liability is always a good thing. If I make people feel heard, respected, and valued, they're going to be less likely to think I'm discriminating against them or treating them bad because of their race, color, religion, national origin, age, whatever it might be, right? Keep it in mind. Better leadership, we know it. Hiring diverse candidates. Let me be very clear about this. As I sit here in Chatham, in Pittsylvania County, it's not easy hiring just pure, straight diversity. When I look at this room, I see a lot of differences and similarities in this room. So I see it. But it's not easy, right? If you're hiring somebody, I live in Roanoke, and I'm going to tell you right now, I work for a law firm. And I will tell you, anybody that I interview at my law firm can work almost anywhere else in the country. That's what we seek. So it is not easy. It's easy to say hiring diverse candidates, but you have to want to hire people who are different, who come to you with different ideas. And there are ways that we can talk about it. But I will tell you, entry-level recruiting, look at colleges, look at high schools. If you're looking at issues of diversity here locally, you want to start thinking about things like, do I talk to the local churches? Do I advertise in particular papers? Do I reach out to the next largest municipalities around me, towns, and say, hey, we got opportunities here in Pittsylvania County, you should find out about it. Those things are all real. Advertise on various job boards, niche job boards is the word. Consider blind screening. You know, I'm not sure about that, where you strip resumes of names and everything else. You know, I get it. They're just saying you'll look at them and you'll consider them for their face value of their skill set. You know, it's up there because it's important, but I'm going to let it go. But also look at how you advertise and look at your perception or how you're portraying yourself out to the general public. Those things matter with regard to hiring diverse candidates. And then, I love this stuff. After we recognize diversity and we talk about that collective mixture, we talk about inclusion. Don't forget, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is the hard stuff, y'all. It really is. I will tell you unequivocally that I think you're going to find a very small number of people who will tell you that they are prejudiced, right? They have biases, explicit or implicit. You have a small number, unless we have this candid conversation among ourselves, because we do have it. There are a very small number of people who can tell you they don't think that diversity is good. They're going to say, oh, no, it's good, it's good. But you know what's hard? What's hard is that next step. Because that next step means making space for somebody else. That next step means not just going through the door, but holding the door open. That's that next step. That's the inclusion part. And that's the hard part, okay? Because it's easy for me to say, no, I don't mind. I really do want you to hire, women in this role or men in this role or black people or white people or Asian people or whatever. It's easy to say. But please don't affect my bonus, right? Because if that means I'm letting people in behind me, I'm not going to let them grow, right? That inclusion is the hard part. And I'm going to tell you, I see it in my own firm. I like mentoring. Leah, who should have been here with me, literally from the time she started working at the firm 6-7 years ago, she's about to come up for partner, I've taken her up under my wing. And I have put her in front of clients, and I've done things. And I didn't care, and clients will call her directly. That's okay with me, right? Because I'm busy enough. I'm good. But I know many, many people who in my firm, and they are smart and they are good people. I know them. I have worked with them for, as I've told you, some 30 years. But they have a hard time letting someone else get in front of their client. They have a hard time saying to Holly, oh, listen, if you can't reach me, reach Monica. Monica, put your touch with somebody. Because they are worried about their own self-sustaining, self-gratification. Inclusion is hard, right? Inclusion is hard. All right. So diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being a member of the party planning committee. You don't want me at your party. My music's going to be good. You're going to like my music. Some of y'all may not. I got to tell you about this real quickly since that's the example, and we got a second. I am fortunate enough, I will tell you this. It's not a brag, it's a statement of fact. Lawyers in Virginia are members of two groups. There's the Virginia State Bar Association, the Virginia State Bar. That's when you pass the bar exam, you become a member of the Virginia State Bar. That's mandatory. The second group is the Virginia Bar Association. That's a voluntary bar association. And frankly, I will tell you it's the cream of the crop. It's the best of the best. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm president-elect of that group. I'm going to be president next year of that group. It's a big honor. I'm proud of it, blah, blah, blah. We have a party. We have a summer meeting at the Homestead. I mentioned White Sulphur Springs earlier. This is Hot Springs, Virginia. At the Homestead, and I went to this party. We had a little outdoor cookout after all the meetings and everything else, and they had a cookout at the Homestead. And they had a band playing, right? And they did this the last couple of years. And I'd skipped the cookout because of the band. The band was a banjo-playing bluegrass band, right? Now, if you don't know anything else about me, let me just tell you, man. And I can like a bluegrass band for about 35 seconds as quick as anybody. I know who I am. I know this Hokie like, but that's the national anthem. The turkey plays with a banjo, right? And so I walk down to the party. This bluegrass band is playing, and they're playing. And look, let me be clear. One of the guys who played a 10-string something was from Roanoke, which, you know, I got local pride in the whole 9 yards. But it's a hard thing for me to hear. You need to understand, I grew up on Motown. I grew up with Sam Cooke. I grew up with Al Green and my younger brother, whom I haven't spoken about a lot. So just so you understand the stereotypes of my house, my younger brother, who is 3 years younger than me, when he was little, he started listening to, are you ready for this? I'll go to names I don't think you know first. Peter Frampton, this guitar player, long-haired white dude, right? Then he started listening to Queen, and he listened to Elton John, right? And if you remember Elton John, Philadelphia Freedom, if you don't know it, it's a classic, right? And these are all good, great musicians. And point of fact, I was somewhere just the other day, and Queen came on, and I was singing it, because I know Bohemian Rhapsody. I can miss Milo with the best of them. If you don't know, watch it, right? My parents literally called me to their room, and they said, "What's wrong with your brother? What's that noise he listening to?" Right? So when I tell you music can matter to me, and when I tell you, when I heard the banjos, I was like, oh, not really my thing. It's ingrained in me. You got to recognize it. Remember I told you I was president-elect? The first thing I knew what to do, change that band out. I am not bringing some hardcore rap group. I'm not bringing Parliament Funkadelic, which would be fun as hell. If you don't know who they are, you should know. If you don't know George Clinton, get to know him. And I don't mean Bill, I mean George, right? Dude was wearing a diaper when he was 65, not because he needed it, because it was cool as hell, right? Right? No, I got some other guys who are going to play good music, and they are coming, because I am not going to have banjos when I'm president of the VBA. All right, let's be clear. But if you do want to hear bluegrass is good, write it down. How many of you guys watch America's Got Talent? I don't watch it. But there's a band on America's Got Talent right now, and they're called Gangster Grass. Seriously, write it down. If you like bluegrass and you want to hear a compilation of how you can make two genres work together, Gangster Grass. Trust me on this, amazing. Right? All right, invite me to the party. No, you don't want to. Question your process, right? Ask yourself, if you're talking about inclusion, ask yourself these kind of questions. Do I offer the same people projects and assignments? It is very easy for us to reach out to people who look like us, who talk like us, who pray with us, right? Who pray with us. There's a phrase in America, 11 o'clock on Sunday is what? It's the most segregated hour in our country. Because we work together, we cheer for teams together, right? Tech, UVA, we do. But the one thing we don't do is we don't worship together as a rule. Something we can think about. So when you talk about how you offer assignments, think about the factors you're using and ask yourself, can I broaden my perspective? Can I broaden my perspective? Do I create opportunities for employees to demonstrate their capabilities? Do I give people a chance? Do I give them a chance? Who do I include? And I'm going to tell you, this is hard. Go back to my millennial friends, right? We've got some very good young lawyers who are coming up and who are on their way. We've got very good young lawyers. But they do want to know, what's the firm doing? What's the growth plan? How are we addressing COVID? How are we getting ready to take the next step to be great? And if you don't include those young people in your plans and your meetings, they won't stay. And if they don't stay, guess where your future just went? Out the door. Out the door. So it's critically important that you think about this stuff from a bigger perspective than just diversity, equity, inclusion, but it's how do we make ourselves attractive to anybody that we would want. Trust me, there are all sorts of slugs out there who are not working right now for a lot of different reasons, but the people we want to make it a work environment which they want to stay or learn or grow. How to identify and choose candidates for promotion and succession? Ask yourself those kind of questions, right? I'm not going to kill you longer, I promise. I told you, and I'm going to tell you one that's not there, and this is not in your slide. I don't think it's in your handout. It's not, right? I told you the census data came out like the last 2 or 3 days, and I'm going to give you a couple of stats, and then I'm going to go through a few more here. Again, diversity, equity, inclusion is not just race, but I just want to find something to pick on. But the first thing I'll address with you, but the first thing I will tell you is, does anybody know what the age, who is the largest age group in our country today? Anybody know? 30? 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds? The census just came out, 18 and under, we're at 52 or 53%. 18 and under, which is interesting to me because we are, unlike Japan, for example, a young country growing, right? A young country growing, 18 and over. Think about that for a second. Your entire workforce hadn't graduated high school yet almost in the next 5 years or so. It's a change. It's something to keep in mind, 18 and under. I highlighted these because I saw it yesterday and I said, I can't have this conversation without talking about some of these numbers. Race and ethnicity highlights, white number. That's the white population. It's the largest group in the U.S. at 204 million people who identify as white alone. White alone, like that's the only thing they check, okay? But white alone decreased by 8.6% since 2010, since the last census, right? It tells you about where the country's going. Some of this stuff can be a scary stat, you guys, in the wrong hands. There are people who could use this and go, oh no, the country's becoming more diverse, we gotta stop it. Just tell them, I know this, I anticipate everything because that's what I do. But these are the stats. 2 or more races or multiracial people, right? Changed a lot since 2010. The multiracial population was 9 million people in 2010. Today, almost 34 million people identify as multiracial. And that really shouldn't surprise you. If you think about 10 years ago, it was common to flip on TV and you saw a black family, or you saw a white family, or you saw something else. I'd never forget, because my wife happens to be half Italian, half German, which means she's white. We were watching TV, and it may have been a Chex cereal commercial, and it may have been a black woman and a white man, and they had a little biracial baby. We're like, oh shit, shoot. The world exists, right? 2 or more. That's a 276% increase. Let me give you a hint. The 2030 census, it'll be fascinating to see where it goes. It's not going down, right? All of a race or alone in any or combination of group experiences increases. So all other alone races, black, Asian, Hispanic, all saw increases. White alone actually saw a decrease of almost 9%. The country's changing, right? And it doesn't mean it's bad, good, or indifferent. It just means we have to be ready for that change as it's occurring. And be very, very clear when we talk about the country changing. I say this stuff, you guys, because I know it to be true. That means that Gretna, Chatham, Pittsylvania County, we're all changing. Roanoke Valley, changing. It's Lynchburg, it's all changing. Danville with this casino and whatever else it's got going on in South Boston and South Side. These changes are not something you can put in a bottle and act like it's only happening in certain places, right? We pay attention to it. Some other race alone or combination groups, 49.9 million increased to 129. The black population was the second largest, but the next largest racial group was Asian. Asian alone or in combo, 24 million, and they are fast growing, right? American Indian, Native Alaskan, just under 10 million, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, 1.6. Hispanic Latino population of any race, look at this, you guys, 62.1 million people in 2020. That has now grown by 23%. 23%. If you wonder, and I can't remember, when I turned off onto Climax Road, I think I was on, I don't know what I was on, 40 or something, I turned on Climax Road. There's a little gas station right there at the corner. If you don't know what it is, I stopped at that gas station before. It was the first time I ever went to a place and I saw something called wrap chips. If you don't know what wrap chips are, I don't know who makes them. They ain't Lay's, right? They ain't Frito-Lay. I don't know who makes them, right? It ain't Nuts. But they got these chips that's got wrappers on the covers of them. I'd never seen such a thing. They also have a fair number of chicharrones in there, right? Think about who's working in the fields around here. Think about who's doing different things. The population changes are real, right? What are the takeaways? What are the takeaways? And we are at 330. That's not bad considering, right? Know your own biases. Recognize that you got them. If we don't get past that part of anything else in here, it is okay. Listen, I'm a dude, and I will tell you this. My family, wife, son, daughter, they all accuse me, Daddy, you're homophobic, for real. You really are. You might train about it, but you are. And you can't convince somebody that you're not something, right, trying to prove a negative. But it is fascinating how they think I have this bias. And it's interesting because I still don't understand what they see or what I say or do. And I mean it. I don't know what they see. But what I do recognize is I'm sure I do stereotypical things. I'll give you an example. At my firm, I have a partner. Her name is Autumn. She's actually married to her wife, whose name is Autumn. We had a baseball game at the Salem Red Sox. If you haven't been to the Salem baseball stadium, go. It's damn near awesome. Mountains back there, cold beer. Whether it's good or bad baseball, I don't have a clue. I don't watch the game. I just don't want to get hit by a ball, right? But we were at this game. It's a family event, and she had her nephews with her. And it was fascinating because Autumn likes me, and I like Autumn a lot, right? I do. I mean, I think she is a benefit to our firm that is beyond measure. So I go over and I say hi to Autumn and her wife, and I say hi to their little daughter, Jane, and she's got two of her nephews with them. One of them has run track. He's got a track shirt on. I tell you, I like track a lot. So we're talking about what he runs and when he's running and how hard he's working or not working. And I'm giving him all kinds of hard times because I'm an obnoxious old man talking to young kids who are like, oh, please stop talking to me. And then his little brother sitting right there, and I'm guessing he's 10, 12 or something like that. He's a good-looking little kid. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I would like to swim, but not like swimming meets or anything else. And so I said, oh, you like seeing the cute girls at the pool, right? That's a normal thing for a heterosexual, cisgender guy to say to a little boy. And my partner Autumn was right there beside me. What do you think she said? No, she said, oh, boys. And you know, it's interesting. I thought about it, right? I didn't say much else, but it was on my mind. It was on my mind all night. And don't forget, Autumn likes me, and I like Autumn. So, and it was a telling moment when you talk about your own biases. The next day I went to her and I said, Autumn, I got to make sure you know something. That was a good moment for me. I said, it didn't dawn on me to say, you just see nice people there or something else. And she said, yeah, that's the kind of thing I really do focus on when you have these innate built-in stereotypes in the language and the way you talk. Now again, Autumn is not, let me be very clear. Let me be 100% clear. She doesn't care if her nephew is strictly heterosexual, likes girls. She doesn't care one bit. But what she doesn't want you to do is push them into boxes. And I told her that. And you know what she said to me? She said, Victor, that's why I like you. The fact that you thought about it and came to say this to me. That was like a moment for her. And we were already close. And so it was just something I'm telling you, I do this stuff for a living. I train it, I live it, I believe it. And every time there's something new for me to learn. And I would just suggest to you, if I can learn something new, a lot of people can. Recognize your own biases. Find your organization's biases and try to correct them. And let me say this to you guys. I work at Woods Rogers. I'm proud of that firm. I am proud of that firm. I've invested my career in that firm. That firm is 131, 132 years old. I can assure you without any doubt that Colonel Woods is turning over in his grave that I'm chairman of the board at that firm. He is. And that don't make him a bad dude turning over in his grave. That's the era in which he was born, 1870, whatever the hell it was, or lived, right? So you have to recognize that, but you have to know if that's the base of your firm, it's opportunity for change. And I'll use opportunity as the word. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's opportunity to look for new things to address and correct. And that's okay too, right? Listen, it's easy to say embrace diversity. You know, I will say this, and I'm sure Pittsylvania County may not see it as much as I do. When you work in a private firm, when I say all of our top 100 clients, who are usually pretty big businesses, to a person, they send out something called RFPs, requests for proposals. Y'all get those? Y'all send them out. You send them out, right? You're that person. Every one of those RFPs has a question about the diverse makeup of your leadership, of who's doing the work, right? You can't spend a moment, and I'm going to tell you, schools that are teaching our young men and women who come out and become professional, they're teaching them to look for these kind of things too, right? So you have to look for those opportunities and recognize it's not just good human stuff, it's business necessity. If you don't answer those questions right or don't know how to answer those questions, it is a major mark against you. Those are the kind of things people focus on. Finally, create processes that encourage and promote inclusion. Easy to say, hard to do. We don't have a lot of racial diversity at my firm. I am the first black partner in my firm. That's what I'm proud of. It's just true. It just happened. I went there in November of '91. Next thing you know, I made partner, and like, oh shit, I guess I'm the first one. Happened, okay? It doesn't make it right or wrong, but what it does mean is, as I sit here in 2021, I got to be sure, and I'm not, the last. I got to be sure those opportunities are there. Let me tell you why. I don't get to answer those RFPs properly if I don't have good people from different backgrounds. I don't get to keep clients and grow the firm and continue to be a viable business if I don't recognize those things. Pittsylvania County doesn't get to attract business in or keep people who want to go to school here and other things unless we show we value these things too. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter where you are, this stuff is all important. She ain't here. Ignore her. She ain't here. I told you when you took a break that we were almost done. It's 3:30. That's the official ending of my part of the presentation to you. But I'll ask you with the microphone in hand. Sorry, I hope I kept it up most of the time. Any questions or comments? I said a lot of stuff. I said stuff that you could easily disagree with. And I would not be offended by your disagreement. I hope I said some things that you could even begin to ponder, think about. Again, not asking for agreement, but I just think it's worth us having this kind of conversation. I am a firm believer, the more we have this kind of conversation, it's easy to be real. You know, you get to say to yourself, no, you know what, dude, I try. I got a hard time with the guy who's going through a sex change, you know, and now doing this. And I will go back to my Olympics real quickly. I struggle with that too. I don't know about competition among transgender athletes. The Olympic Committee, the IOC, has done certain things with regard to, you know, steroids and medication to try to ensure the genetic makeup is proper. And I believe that's working too. But it's still a challenge. It's still a challenge. So we got challenges everywhere. And the more that science and society advance, we're going to have more challenges before we have fewer. And then we just be ready for it. All right. On that note, I'm done. And I'm serious. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, what are they doing? Are they just going back to work? Home or work, wherever the heck you got to go. Like they say, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the heck up out of here. Go. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.